Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. This is the regular EV family podcast. It's been a while. Again, sorry, I'll get to that in a minute. Before we do, though, as ever, Joe from EV Motoring. How are you, Joe?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm wondering if I'm still comfortable promising our listener that we'll regularly have shows.
We are doing it regularly. Joe, here's the crazy thing, and I've had to think about this, right? This is episode 36. We started this 18 months ago. In fact, less than that, about a year ago. I can't remember the exact date. Let me see when the first one.
I want to say it was August of. Well, we started them on YouTube, right? And then we moved them to.
Yeah, well, we started our own weird thing the first ones were published in September. So it's not bad. I mean, the cadence is a bit off. Let me explain what. So unfortunately, we had a crazy couple of things where I was in and out of Florida, as was Joe. Never at the same time. Both been on the road. I have been dealing with family illness as well, mixture of COVID, flu, RSV. Who knows at this point? Probably a bit of monkeypox in there. Just for the flavor. And we've just been and then I was on. I actually took some hardcore vacation, took the kid to Disney World, and it's just not the same podcasting from Epcot, you know. Although I will joke about that in a minute, actually.
Yeah,
I will.
I got you on that one.
I will share a story or three with you, Joe, in a few minutes about that. But how are you? How have you been?
I'm doing pretty well. Polestar's working great. I took that to on my trip to Disney. I went to Charlotte to pick up my sister and her husband. We took that to Disney, so that was their first experience in an electric vehicle. So they got to experience the charging and all that. Then dropped them back off and drove home. I also hit the tail of the dragon on the way down, so got to
saw that.
Yeah, it was a pretty good EV road trip for sure.
How did they find the drive with the charging stuff? Because were you ripping and running? Were you doing it proper? You doing it hardcore?
Yeah, and the charging corridor over there. So from Charlotte, we were able to skip Columbia, something, South Carolina. We were able to make it all the way to Savannah, and that was like a 10-minute charge. After that, we did a like 30-minute charge to be able to skip over Brunswick, because Brunswick's charger is like 15 minutes out of the way off the highway. So that's definitely one you want to skip. And then Jacksonville, and then you end up in Disney. So on the way back, we did just the reverse order, but we skipped like Daytona or one of those, but we had to stop in Columbia on the way back. So it worked pretty well. On the way down, they seemed much more tolerable of it because it lined up with me. The two longer charges lined up with meals very well. On the way back, I think they're just more antsy to get home, so less tolerable for the. It actually, according to Google, was only 45 minutes different taking the Polestar versus what a gas car would have been. And I would argue it probably ended up being pretty much the same difference because you would have stopped for the meals, etc. So. I don't know.
So I'm intrigued. So what? No. Did you start in Chicago or?
Yeah. So I started from Chicagoland and drove to Louisville on day one. It was kind of evening one after work. Then went to Charlotte on day two. Was there for a couple days. Then we drove to Disney. Was there for a couple days. Drove back to Charlotte. There for a couple days, and then I cannonballed home from Charlotte from there.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at it. So from Charlotte you managed to you say you go past, you went to Savannah, so you don't have to go to Brunswick.
Right.
So Savannah, Jacksonville, and then you're pretty much there. So it's only 2 stops. That's actually not
right. I dropped a third one in after Jacksonville. I did Daytona on the way down because that was a better charge ripping and running kind of platform, but. That way also we got to Disney with some juice because there's not an EA station anywhere near Disney, really. There's one, I guess, at the Florida Mall, which is kind of by Universal, but I just had visions of that being a complete madhouse of people. So
I will say, I wasn't with an electric car, but I was looking at some of the charging infrastructure around us, and yeah, not good. Not that a lot of the level twos at hotels just had the crap beaten out of them. Clearly, somebody spent some money at some point as a tick box, and it wasn't anything that continued with.
The other brutal bit is, Disney. Disney, I'm pretty sure, is pretty much self-sufficient off of solar, right? So they're producing their own power. So to be charging, 40 cents a kilowatt hour is a little extreme, considering that they're using the sun to power it.
I will say, I did see at Disney Springs, which is kind of like, I don't know, like the Disney Mall, Disney outside mall experience thing. Very good. We went to Marimoto's. The Asian food was so good.
Oh, that's one of the best. Yep.
Welcome to the EV Food Network podcast. That and the Southern Place across the road from it was just absolutely fantastical. There was a lot of charging stations in Disney Springs, in the lime and orange. Now I don't know if they were available to the public, but I did see them. I was in holiday. It was in kind of vacation mode, so I wasn't paying attention.
That's how mine was too. The last time I went to Disney over the summer, I still brought my computer and was pretty much working almost every day. This was a computer left at home, true,
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why you and I started recording this a few minutes late, is because I had to update all the software on my laptop to get it to work for this. All right, let's move on. So we have so much, and so, ladies and gentlemen, to our listener, we do have a script for this. We do actually have a running order, but I'm warning you right now, this is going to be a longer one because we have much to catch up on, and then we're going to talk about some predictions for next year. Let's start with, and by the way, sorry if you're only listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, we are going to do some screen sharing on this occasion. We don't do it very often, but I can't tell you about this without showing it to you. So let's start off with the bad news, I think is fair to say. Let me share my screen. And we had an accident. That's my ID4, and it got bitten, for want of a phrase. For the audio people, the driver's front quarter has been crumpled and ripped off. Now, I'm going to be very careful about what I say here because there are lawyers involved. I was actually on my way to charge the car. It was at I got into a very nice little situation over the past few weeks before the run-up. In the few weeks before my kid was, before school broke up, I have been I take the kiddo to school most days because my hours are kind of a little bit off at the moment, a bit weird. And so I've enjoyed taking her to school, grabbing a coffee, and then going to the EA charger and charging up. I know Tom would be pissed with us for saying this, but I am taking advantage of the free charging because my solar doesn't make as much this time of year, and so but we're running a lot of heating. So I have been taking advantage. But I just chill out and I get my work done. I have good Wi-Fi down there, and so I was going down to charge. I needed to charge. I was down to single-digit percents at this point. And what happened? This is the intersection of Capitol and Jackson, and there was a white city vehicle truck had gone through the junction. In front of me was a old sort of 1990s, early 2000s Mercedes S-Class, the good ones, the old ones, the ones that were built like a tank. And they pulled forward. There was nothing after the white truck. There was nothing coming at all. And they pulled forward, and I pulled forward with them, and then they jammed on the brakes. It was just a really low impact. So bear in mind, from what you can see, I kind of just tried to move out of the way, didn't make it, and I intersected with their taillight with the very corner of my headlight. By the way, those headlights, $1,124 each. I've only broken the lens, so we'll see if they end up being able to just, do something. We'll see what happens. But
what else is the damage? So it's still drivable, is my understanding?
yeah, it's drivable. So since then, I should have done an updated picture. We kind of bent that torn panel and kind of tucked it in a little bit, so I'm not driving with a dagger. I pulled the black plastic trim off after it had been to the body shop. I should hasten it. So I did drive it like this to the body shop, but there's no fluids. There's no there was nothing major in there. But yeah, parts and labor. This is an $11,000 repair. Yeah, kind of crazy. Oh, here's one of the interesting things. So, because I caught it right on that corner, there was no airbags. This was at 20. This was less than 20 miles an hour. Okay. And what's interesting is the glass roof cracked.
Really?
Yeah, the glass roof cracked because it must have just put a little shimmy.
Oh, into that A pillar, right?
Yeah, and there's a crack, and it cracked. So, but ironically, there is one. I've got the one that was in stock, so it's going to be fine. We did think they were going to have to do the repair in 2 parts. So anyway, it's going into the shop on January the 9th. It'll be there for about 10 days. I couldn't open the driver's door at the beginning, but the body shop worked it so that they've kind of folded that panel in and stuff. We did think about just removing that for safety, but then it would just be more exposed, and you just don't want shit getting in there. So it was really bad. It doesn't look pretty, but then neither do I. I can live with that. I can live with that. So that's what happened there. Bit of annoyance. Now, look, if any of you have ever been to my comedy shows, I know a few of our listeners have, you'll know I say some outrageous things, which I should be cancelled for. So I'm going to be very careful on this. These people did not speak one word of English. The guy called his brother to help with the paperwork and the photos and exchange of stuff. This accident took place at less than 20 miles an hour. It would appear that they have crippling neck injuries. Crippling neck injuries. Yeah. So my insurance company asked if I was. So one of the things I did, if you know my background, I was with the military intelligence. So as soon as I got back we departed the scene. We got all the photos. I immediately recorded a verbal affidavit into my phone of what happened in near as real time, and I supplied that to the insurance company as well. And they've asked me if I would be happy to testify. I'm like, absolutely. I'm probably one of the last people you want to screw with. I'm incredibly I'm incredibly disorganized, but very, very well organized with it. So I'm drinking an excessive amount of tea right now. To try and stave off this.
So I did my winter range test today, since it's -9 degrees outside in the Polestar, and so I also took advantage of some free charging while I could. My thought I've kind of developed with this, whether or not it's the best practices or not, is when I got there was only one car at my charger. By the time I left, it was full, but there was nobody waiting in line, so I didn't feel any guilt that I was holding anyone up. And if someone showed up, I would have unplugged sooner and been on my way.
No, I respect that, and I feel the same thing. I'm using this I'm using this early in the morning. There's no one there, so I don't feel too bad about it.
And what I wonder is who's losing on that deal. Did Polestar make like in my case, did Polestar give a large amount of money to Electrify America and they're covering the charges? Or is Polestar getting billed for all of my charges, essentially? I'd be curious to know about that.
I would be curious as well. I would be. What is very interesting, let's just talk briefly about the chargers. A lot of EA chargers have been going in the ground. I don't know if you've noticed around you, but we have a lot of them have been going live, have been going in.
My problem with me is I need them to come out of the ground. I have
Well,
there's only two in my relative area. One is about 15 minutes from my house at a Costco. The other one is about 10 minutes from my office at a Walmart. And of course, those are the two sites in the local area that are just horrible. The one I was at today, all three chargers are 50 kilowatt. They've been that for like over a month. And then the one at my office, they've been limited to about 70 or 80. And that's all four chargers have been that way for months on end. The third one that you're maybe aware of is the one by Rosemont where I had dropped the car at one point where we met. Those work great,
yep.
But that's, way out of the way of my normal routine.
I'm just seeing if anybody has done an update, and the answer is no. Okay, so since I talked about, I might have been using it for the Thanksgiving trip we didn't take, unfortunately, due to my father's-in-law's ill health. But it does look like the features, what I'm going to call the feature site at Kettleman, has gone live. It's also known as, for reasons, we'll talk about the names of some of these in a minute, okay? But this one's called Chelio's Mexican Restaurant. Why not call it Kettleman? Anyway, it has gone live with, it says, so with 10 stations. What's interesting is PlugShare hasn't updated some of its abilities yet. So it says 10 stations with 19 plugs, but it's not. It's 10 stations with 11 plugs because these are the brand new units.
Oh,
so,
right. Yep.
I
would bet Baker's probably still incorrect then.
Yeah. So I'm I will whiz down there at some point. Speaking of winter range, with the accident, it's taken about 17 miles of range off me. So that's my winter issue. Having said that, what's the temperature today with wind chill in Chicagoland?
-9 air temperature Fahrenheit. So it was -40 or 50 when I set off. Was the wind chill when I set off this morning, and that's with only a 15-mile-an-hour wind. So needless to say, with the ID4, I think I got like 180-ish miles on my winter test, but that was at like 9 degrees positive or 10 degrees. This was 137 miles, and I could not maintain highway speed anymore, as in my foot was buried, and I was losing speed at 6% state of charge. So I crawled off the highway, limped 2 miles over to the charger. It was a morning, As I say, the only time I truly feel alive is when my battery is below 5%.
That's funny. Yeah, I'm wearing my hoodie today because it's cold, my friend. It's 60 outside.
Yeah. There's actually there was a TikTok I saw that because LA got some 50-degree temperature 40s overnight, and they were talking about the extreme cold hitting LA.
Yeah, we actually had snow on the mountain above us. I'm actually just looking to see the James Lick Observatory webcam to see what the it looks like up there right now, and there'd be no snow. It'd be nice, bright, and green up there. So
outside of the horrible range, the car still, as you would expect a Swedish engineered car to be, performed excellent. It was great. I was very warm and comfortable on the inside with the heat set to eco mode, 72 degrees. Everything ran great. So I love that car more every day that I drive it. And I got to play with sport mode after that fresh snowfall we got, and it lets you do some good drifting.
Oh, well. So let me talk briefly. In Orlando, we had the minivan. I'm not going to repeat the joke I told you earlier on. Come to one of my shows if you want to hear that. It's truly vulgar. But David Lucas, who is one of Tony Hinchcliffe's regular openers, was performing in Tampa at Side Splitters. while I was there. I hit him up and he said I could do some guest spots, and I was like, awesome. So I had to drive very quickly from Orlando to Tampa the next night. I couldn't leave the family without a vehicle, so I went to Avis and rented the cheapest thing I could get, a midsize, for $32, including all taxes. I still, for some weird thing, I'm still a chairman preferred from back in the day when I didn't live on it, when I was traveling and I didn't live on Uber, when I used to rent cars all the time. I don't think it's a lifetime thing. I think they just forgot to take it away from me. It was because it's by invitation or whatever it was. Anyway, they upgraded me to a Mustang GT. But it was raining so hard, anything above 70, it just started to. It was running on P0s, and anything above 70 miles an hour, you could just feel the rear lifting. It was just, and then the front would start to shimmy, and we're like, we'll just drop the speed back down to. Mother Nature was holding me to 68. And it was even worse on the way back. But I took co-pilot London. We went for pancakes in the morning before we went to meet up with Mommy. And she got to drive in the front because I couldn't actually get her into the back of the Mustang, into the back of the GT. It's a 2+2, and I couldn't actually get her car seat into the back and her. I'm like, all right, well, legally that means you can go in the front. So I put her in the front and did a U-turn at speed, and with the wheels screaming and the engine having some fun.
And then you slid into a crowd of people.
No, but here's the thing: Miss London is used to that stuff because we've done rallycross and stuff before on closed places and but she's never heard it with an engine. Because she's had so much fun with the Taycan, with the cars that we're fortunate enough to borrow. She's had fun with me in the Taycan and the Audi GT, Mustang, I don't know, whatever other fun cars we've had to drive over the years. And but this was the first time with a motor, and she just went, "That sounds cool." and I said to her, Mommy's car's fast, and she went, "Doesn't sound faster." There you go, ladies and gentlemen. The 6-year-old's telling you how it is. The e-tron doesn't sound faster. It is faster, but it doesn't sound faster. Here's one interesting thing I will say. The range on the e-tron and the Ford GT, exactly the same. 200 miles on a tank.
200 miles, uphill, downhill, doesn't matter.
Yeah. So that was that. Let's much to talk about, and we don't normally talk about Tesla, but I think we should on this occasion, given the date and given everything that's going on there. So we're in an interesting situation. We have the EV tax credit coming back next year. And it's and we find ourselves in an interesting situation because the guidance from the government is such that they have not firmed up the guidance in time for the 1st of January. It will be released sometime in the second quarter on the battery conditions. The manufacturers know where the battery elements came from and the ingredients and the geographies for them, but for one reason or another they cannot make this work together. So there is a 90-day period where, as long as the car was manufactured and or assembled in North America, not the United States but North America, I think that was a little gesture to Ford. Yeah. Then, as long as the vehicle is the size and comes in under the MSRP guidance, there's a full $7,500 available. Do you read anything differently into it, my friend?
So, right. So originally what happened was many manufacturers expected to get the 3,750 credit, which that's because they assemble their batteries here in the U.S., but they still used significant amount of materials or the minerals in the battery from other countries, which was going to exclude them from the second half $3,750. And a couple brands have been outspoken about it. Tesla was pretty confident that the long range variants would qualify for the full credit. GM said that in 2 to 3 years, they thought their vehicles would qualify. And that brings me to quote our colleague, Tom Moloughney. He said that if here we are 10 days from the new year, and the car companies are claiming that they don't know whether they'll qualify for the credit, I think it's fair to assume they know they will not qualify for the credit, and they just don't want to admit it yet. So they're going to keep dragging their feet because, that as soon as Chevy tells you that they're not going to qualify, but Ford tells you they are, well, that a lot of times might have solved your buying situation, So the interesting thing they've done is by postponing this to March, you now have GM and Tesla qualifying for the full 7,500. So in a state here like Illinois, where we get 4,000 back off of a car as well, you can now get a $26,000 Bolt for $15,000 after the $7,500 credit and the $4,000 credit. As much as it's a Bolt, it is still a $15,000 car at that point, and it's pretty impressive.
So if you see an interruption, it's because I lost my internet connection. So Joe, you were saying about Tesla. Please continue.
Well, did we get I was covering the bit about Chevrolet as well.
I don't know what you said, but I bet it was brilliant. So, but you just keep going, my friend, and I'll come back.
So I'd mentioned that, to quote our colleague Tom Moloughney, he said that, a lot of brands out there are kind of claiming they're not sure if they'll qualify. Oh, did it just restart? Are you there?
You keep going.
Okay. Technical difficulties here around Christmas, right? So here we are that the credit was supposed to take effect on January 1st, and some brands are claiming they're not sure if they're going to qualify for the full credit. Well, Tom had said, and I think it's probably a fair point to kind of assume, these companies know where the batteries are coming from, and if they're not telling us whether they will or won't make the credit, they probably won't be qualified for the credit, and they just don't want to publicly admit it yet. Especially if today that a Ford is going to qualify next month and a Chevy won't, well, that might obviously will influence your buying situation. It's kind of influenced my buying situation. I bought the Polestar when it got a $7,500 tax credit and now does not. And Tesla did not get a credit back then. Now Tesla does. So those two switches is effectively a $15,000 switch in the purchase price of both vehicles competitively. So it definitely makes a big difference with this credit coming back. And the kind of the loophole created now is originally we thought that only 3,750 of the credit would be available based on the batteries being assembled in the US, which most manufacturers do. But then they were going to miss the other half of the credit due to the minerals not being sourced from free trade agreement countries or whatever the language is in that portion of the tax credit. Well, now because the mineral portion is not taking effect till March or later, essentially GM and Tesla are getting their credit back January 1st. Granted, not all Teslas. The Performance 3 definitely will not get it. The Long Range 3 currently doesn't, but I spoke to a Tesla salesman today, and he was very sure that they're lowering the price to meet that come January 1st. So that was a little hint. And the kind of the other interesting fact is, we're not big fans of the Chevy Bolt around here, obviously, but at $26,000.
I gotta say, Joe, I'm having problems with this right now. I'm having real. We'll come to the Chevy Bolt in a minute.
Well,
let's
I'll
just
say
stay
real
off this.
quick. To a state like Illinois, that gives us $4,000 off of the car, plus now the $7,500. You take a $26,000 car for $15,000. That starts to become that's just a good first car for anyone at that point. It's certainly not a road trip. It certainly doesn't fit our lifestyles, but it's, talk about EVs becoming the, cheaper. We're not just talking about, they break even with their gas counterparts. No, this is fine. You're talking Mitsubishi Mirage price territory for the Bolt. So,
I don't qualify for the state. Well, so, and by the way, let me just remember people, as of January 1st, there are income limits on this as well.
Oh, that's right. I actually said that when we were blacked out a minute ago. That was the other big piece that helps right now is Tesla doing the $7,500 cash on the hood. Obviously, that applies to everyone. You don't need to apply for a credit, so everyone can get that. It also is applying to the performance Model 3s, which will not get the credit January 1st. So that's really your best bet to get a discount on one of those if you're looking for that as well. And the 10,000 miles of supercharging is about $1,000 of electricity that you'll get from it. Also, a side bit of tax information: if you buy the car January 1st or later, and you're getting a tax credit that you'll essentially receive in 24 because you'll get it a year later, you're paying sales tax on the full purchase price of the car. Call it $50,000. If you're getting the car with cash on the hood, you're only paying sales tax on 42,500. So, in a state like Illinois, 7.25%. So like an extra $500 you save on the sales tax of the car, plus your interest. Interest rates are crazy right now. You're now having a smaller
Can I
loan,
just
so
say,
smaller interest.
historically, they're not
Yeah.
high right now.
Yeah.
They're high for a generation,
Correct.
but they are not high for anybody, Joe, over the age of my age. Can remember when this, by the way, were normal interest rates. So just
Well, I should say historically, manufacturers have always eaten a little bit of the interest rate. But right now, because of the shortage of cars, manufacturers aren't really throwing anyone a bone at this point.
no. But let's talk about. I'm going to share with you all another quick screen. Here's the thing. So right now, let me share with you the Tesla pay. So
So the cash on the hood has definitely been working. This is actually
hold on. You don't bury the lead here, sunshine.
what I should say is a month or so ago, I was
Just
browsing around.
hold on. A month ago, they were offering $3,750 on the hood.
Right,
Because
and there
that's
was
where the working assumption was.
plenty of inventory. I mean, almost any spec color combo, interior combo that you wanted, there within 200 miles, there almost guaranteed was one sitting on a lot.
Now, this is not 100% accurate what I'm about to show you, but just before I show you that, here's my thing, Joe. Right, here's my problem. You went into Tesla, you were like, this could make money, and you know how I completely disagree. The economy is going to take a turn next year. You're not making money on cars. All right, the only person who makes money on cars is the person who makes them.
Fair enough. My 2 cents I want to say on that real quick is if everything's depreciating, in other words, I'm not saying I'm going to buy a Tesla and sell it for more than I paid for it. What I'm saying is if I'm buying a Tesla at 40 grand, or holding my Polestar that's, is valued right now at 46 grand, which one is going to drop further over the course of the next year?
But it's the cost of money, it's depreciation, it's whatever the hell you want to call it. It's just the cost of ownership. But here's the thing, Joe. Here's the thing. Right now, the Model 3 long range, because it doesn't even show, the standard range doesn't even exist. If I go to Model,
in inventory, there's not one in the entire.
No. If I go to buy now, and I want to,
you have to go to custom order in order to order one.
Build your custom Model 3. Here we go. Okay, Model 3 rear wheel drive. I want the real price, not the actual bullshit price. $46,990. Okay.
Yep. That's the same standard range that 2 years ago was 37,500.
Yeah, and inflation's one thing, but also we've seen Tesla's profitability numbers. They were making 20 points on vehicles, which is an unheard of margin. A lot of pent up demand. It's a high end thing. They make a lot of money through software because, trust me, and that's about how your book reporting and things like that. But at the same time, when you talk about cars that I try not to click on the ads. I know it'll take me there quickly, but I don't want to be having these things banging at me for the next couple of weeks.
Also, I'll finish quick point. Since you were on Tesla, you saw that they have the standard range available to order now and the performance available. The reason, my understanding is the reason they have the long range grayed out is because they're going to change the price of that come January 1st. So they don't want people ordering it and then everyone has to call them to change the order price, yada, yada. It's easier for them to just gray it out for now.
So, we look at the ID4s. We've got the ID4 standard. Okay, this is the smaller battery, the 62, which we know will go 190 miles just based on math.
Yep.
I think they probably say 200, but real world, our way of doing it, 70 miles an hour, split turn. 200 versus 234. And that's coming in at $38,000. I'm sorry, Joe, but I cannot say that that vehicle is in access to the Tesla network. I'm not taking into account free charging. Forget that. Just the networks that are accessible. I cannot say that value exists, that differentiated value exists between those vehicles. The Model 3 is a small vehicle. I've been in one multiple times over the past week as Ubers. And the Model Y is even more expensive. I just can't justify, just on the amount of car you get. I'm taking out the software update because we're going to come to that, and the future value and all those kind of things. But the ID4 is just tremendous. Even when they put the price up by $1,500 on January 1st, I just couldn't buy a Tesla Model 3 or Model Y at the prices they've got to. I could when they, back before the pandemic. This was meant to be a $35,000 vehicle.
What I think there's kind of 2 points. So I think we can obviously agree that the ID4 still continues to be the best value electric vehicle you can buy, just on the basis of 3 years of free charging, road tripper.
Full size vehicle. Let's just add full size vehicle because we're going to talk about the Bolt in a few minutes.
Right, but the Bolt is really an around town car. You don't want to have to leave town in it. The ID4, you can happily take that wherever you want to go. And we've both proven that it's an outstanding vehicle. And kind of where Tesla kind of comes into this from the same point that the ID4 is such a good price at $40,000. I think the long range battery is 43, something like that, somewhere in there. Compare that to what a Mach-E cost, right? Or an Ioniq 5. I mean, I know the Ioniq 5 charging is amazing, but the price you're paying to get that charging is absurd, and no tax credit now, right? So you really, now the Mach-E becomes way cheaper than the Ioniq 5, Key V6, all those. And now that Tesla gets their tax credit back, now we're bringing a Model Y down to the price of what an Ioniq 5 or EV6 is, which, obviously all have that great charging. So it's the ID4 still continues to have that great value. And then on the more upmarket luxury segment, if you want to call that, although I would argue the ID4 can qualify as entry luxury just with the the quality of build of it. But I think the Model Y is really going to crush. I mean, it's been crushing its competition, but I think Kia and Hyundai will continue to suffer just now that, if you put a Tesla side by side at the same price, how do you walk out with the Ioniq 5 at the end of the day?
I kind of get it. I prefer for a family, if you've got a family and you carry a whole lot of crap on a regular basis, the body shape of the Ioniq, that slightly boxier back end, and the EV6, same thing, is just more usable than Model Y. I did the long trip with the Model Y, up, down the East Coast over summer, and the sloping, that sports coupe thing, it is an annoyance. It is a limiting factor. It's the reason I couldn't get a 400 crate. I couldn't get my hunting dog in there. That's my issue. But yeah, we talked about it briefly there for a minute. Let me bring it up. Where we are now,
Right.
This just becomes amazing value. And, if
So
I'm,
it's honestly, I came into this call talking about, how I've interest in went to Tesla trying to shop around for one. This is also on my list of, you want to talk about a recession-proof car. I'm certainly looking at it. I don't necessarily want to be a single guy pulling up to a date night in my Bolt. I'd much rather pull up within my Polestar and my Tesla. But, as far as economical and making the pragmatic choice, it's kind of very hard to not choose the Bolt at the end of the day, especially as economic times are heading towards an imminent recession at this point.
yeah, it is. The Bolt with, unfortunately, I would, if I hadn't had such good fortune, bloody hard work, but good fortune this year, I would be seriously tempted to buy one of these, if only to have it as a runaround vehicle and to throw it on Turo. Seriously, at $20,000, and just have it on Turo and use it for runaround. Because it's exceptional value. But let's just so this was what I would say. So everyone, let's just put a little bit of short-term history on this. Tesla does 16,000. $3,700. Then they bring it up to 7,500. The press is going. By the way, these are not Elon fanboys on this podcast. By the way, people. Okay. Let me just say right now, I've had the privilege of meeting Elon. I've had the privilege of. You know the story, and I can't tell it. So we're not.
Yeah,
you can't tell it either.
I would openly second that we're about as unbiased as it comes as far as this stuff. We just like good electric cars, and it's kind of just when.
And he's fantastic, but he has created. He's become a polarizing figure, and with what's been going on at Twitter and but everyone's, their share price has been cut in half. It's taken an absolute beating.
Even more, down 75% year to date.
And here's the thing. Everyone's like, oh my God, they must have a demand issue. Just so you know, right now, it is, it's 2 a.m. It's 2 p.m. Pacific on, what day is it, Joe? It's Friday,
23rd.
Right? 23rd. And Tesla has a demand issue. Let me show you what's going on. So if you're not familiar, this is called EV-CPO. This is about 90% accurate, all right, because there's a time delay. And if you were to look at the headlines, there are 1,500 Model 3s available, except that's not true. There are 824 available in the USA, except that's not true. There are 52 available to buy right now.
And I can take that a step further because I was shopping last night. It was around 5 o'clock last night Central, so 3 o'clock your time, so 24 hours. There was within 200 miles of my zip code here in Chicagoland, there was, 50 to 60 cars. I could pick any car in any trim with any color combo, performance, standard range, long range, whatever. And overnight and into today, they are all gone since they announced that they're upping it to 7,500.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So that's the Model 3s. The Model Y, and there are more Model Ys. There's 146 Model Ys right now. And I'm just arranging these by price. So the cheapest one at $51,600. Let's see if it's actually available, because this is when it then does a hard pull. This one is available. Where is it? Oh, this is used. Oops, did I make a mistake and click on used, not new? I did. That was my mistake. I meant John. There are 232 Model Ys. Let me do the price thing.
I
So
also
the
inquired
cheapest.
about ordering a made in Texas Model Y, and they're not even taking orders at this point. So that must be quite a long line at this point as well.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that one is available. There used to be a way of being able to decode. This one is in Memphis, of all places. So if you're in Memphis, you can get a Model Y. Go get one now. Stop listening to the podcast. Go buy one.
It'll be gone by the time you hear this.
So yeah, the Chevy Bolt becomes amazing value. If we didn't have our situation, I would be sorely tempted to grab one. Just as like you said, a recession-proof thing. Because did I mention on the last recording that I have ordered a car?
Yes, you mean
I ordered the Volvo. Yeah, so I've ordered the Volvo. And I will tell you right now, at the end of this podcast recording, I will be canceling an order.
Really?
Yeah, for the Ford Lightning.
Oh, yeah. I had a dealer call me today because I'm on, at least 50 dealers wait list, around the country, quite frankly. One of them in Oakland, even. This dealer called me, surprisingly local. They said, we are selling our Pro. It is available for sale today. And you were next on the list. And I said, okay, is there a dealer adjustment for that? They said, yes, we're selling it for $66,000. I said, no, thank you. They then texted me. I talked to my manager. We'd be willing to sell it for $60,000. I said, no, thank you.
I'm not paying overbook, and I'm.
Yeah, that's why I bought the Polestar. I refuse to pay over stickers for cars.
My life is not going to change without a truck. Would I like to have a truck? Yeah. Would it be useful? Absolutely. Is it essential? Nope. I've got an ID4 and an e-tron. I've got a massive transit van. I've got a brand new transit on its way to me for something else. But so, yeah, we do still have non-electric vehicles in this household. I'll be trading in my white transit for a blue transit.
Is the Pacifica on the chopping block at some point?
Let's not talk about that because that involves someone's healthcare. It's kind of a tricky one, that one. Also, I've had my teeth whitened recently, and I just realised the gap in them is more noticeable now that my teeth are cleaner. There's a problem. British dentistry. We missed the mask. So, so that was the other thing. Let's cover off another couple of topics which have been on my mind. Rivian, are they going to make it or not? What do you think?
I think they are really going to continue to struggle. I mean, we know Tesla was in this similar situation a few years back when they were getting the 3 up and running. Where I think they're really it might be the end of them is, find me a Rivian truck for under 90,000, right? Or 85,000. They really don't exist. And that means they do not get the credit. So they're, it's 80 or 90 grand.
They do get the credit if you pre-ordered it and they keep the pricing.
Right. But they're still going to continue making around 30,000 trucks next year or so. That's pretty similar to, I think, what their production was this year. Ford will be at over 80,000 trucks next year. So, and Chevy will be coming online, and Hummer is, increasing production. So it's only going to get more competitive for Rivian, as time goes. And I'm not too familiar with how many pre-orders Rivian has sitting out there. I'm not sure what their situation on that is. And that might have been also what's hurting them, is because they had to honor some old pricing that they promised people from 3 years ago.
Well, I mean, it's not only that. So first of all, they're simplifying, they are simplifying their lineup. They are indefinite. I'm not sure how they're deciding to articulate this, but they are indefinitely halting their max battery. That's the one that we've not seen yet. And the quad battery, and the quad motor options. So,
they're getting rid of the quad motor, or they're keeping the quad motor? Is what everything's been to this point.
However, if you check the Rivian, you'll notice you're no longer able to configure an R1T that includes both the quad motor and max pack. Furthermore, current Rivian reservation holders with that configuration are being asked to choose between the range or power. I find that they're saying that the Max Pack will only be available with the dual motor. I find that interesting because one would assume the batteries were modular so that there shouldn't be any changes. But also, and I think this is worth noting, the motors in the quad motor are not their motors.
Bosch.
They're Bosch. They're bringing those in. The dual motors are the ones which they're fitting to the Amazon trucks, which I see more and more of.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's so much we don't know. It makes sense to have control of your supply, both on the battery and those things. Why those two things don't work, I don't know. It's I'm sure we'll find out at some point.
With that said, as much as we may have our doubts about the company, on my dream car list, the Audi e-tron GT RS is number one, and the Rivian R1S is a close second for
I saw an R1S 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
In Los Gatos, which is kind of the natural home of one.
They've just been slowly been replacing Range Rovers around here.
Yeah, and it's such a beautiful box.
Yep.
It's such a great box, and I think we are, as a family, we're at the point where we, the ID4 is just a great practical family vehicle for a family of our size, and the e-tron is the nice, my wife's nicer car. The lady gets a Land Rover, and now she gets an e-tron. But that kind of it would be great for us just having the extra space. We don't need the third row of seats. Just having that bigger space, electric, is great for us for taking the dogs, going to dog shows and all the. By the way, my dogs don't take up much space. It's the crap that goes with them. It's the fact that my dogs travel in crates and all the grooming stuff and the kids stuff and the suitcases.
We talked about this, that the iX, because of the shape in the back, doesn't work for you, but I would bet the R1S, being that boxy shape, probably works perfectly.
Trust me, I had access to one for about 15 minutes, and I'm like, can I see how a crate fits in there? I happened to have a crate in the back of my car at the time. And so, now bear in mind the thing which I'm just waiting for is the ID bus. I'll be having one of those. Hopefully they are tooling up to make that in Chattanooga so that it qualifies for the tax credit, because that's just what's going to make it really sing.
Yep, I haven't heard much buzz about the bus. If it still is,
I have been watching Bjorn's videos. He took one to and from the Arctic Circle.
Yeah, no, I know that they've been great over there. I haven't heard anything about the time frame over here.
I have inside information I'm not sharing, but it's not going to happen until 2024. It's not going to happen next year. And then the question is, are they? I can't talk about it. Anyway, we'll talk afterwards. I'll fill you in afterwards. Let's talk about. But seeing as we found, so here's the ID4 update.
Oh, 3.1, right? Or is it 3.1? Is it so? I have a question. Is it a selective rollout that they're essentially picking and choosing which cars get it first? Because the reason I ask is Polestar does the same thing. Polestar will tell me an update's available, and then I search for it, and it's not there. Here's what's and realize that they handpick who gets it.
Here's what's happening. So this is for all the European-made ID4s, all right? So the new ones that are coming out of Chattanooga already have 3.1. Don't care about those, okay? And there was a batch of ID4s, the last batch of ID4s that came into the country, came in with 3, okay? And they will get, at some point soon-ish, a software update to 3.1 that should be OTA. Okay.
And what are the key differences between 3 and 3.1?
Couple of tweaks in the software interface, but the most crucial thing is in 3.1 is the one that opens up the charging.
Okay. So 3.0 does
100,
not have the charge.
182, 186 kilowatt charging that has been seen. So here is the current situation. And I'm getting this from 2 dealers, one of whom is very knowledgeable. So I will say right now, not my friendly dealer, but the dealer where I bought my car, Dublin Volkswagen, because I spoke to them this morning. I have one of the early ones, right? Mine was an April vehicle, April a year ago. It's one of the early first editions. And so they are doing them kind of when they were bought. Okay, and apparently priority is given to those who still own the vehicle. That's usually because the service records are intact and with the dealer. Okay, and it's being done by VIN number, and VW saying bring them in and bring that one, that one, that one, that one. It is a 12.5-hour process. They have to maintain an ODB connection to it. So they have to swap out the battery. They have to make sure the battery is properly connected, working, and there's a software update that has to go in prior to that to make the brand new lithium-ion batteries work. This is the 12-volt battery. Okay, that's because if they use the existing battery chemistry, it'll die before the update's gone on.
So is this a 12-hour update because the cars run on Windows 95 as opposed to like any other car in the world?
It is because the software is not just limited to the brain, the ECU, but also a substantial number of microcontrollers around the car. Right, it is an all-car update, and it takes the time it does because this is this is what you would call foundational. It's a complete operating system replacement. They might look the same, but underneath it's all completely different. There's a lot of commonality, but it's fundamentally a complete overwrite. They have had issue that the car has to remain connected at all times. So all the dealers are having to upgrade to fiber connections at their dealerships, and they have to make sure that they can maintain bandwidth connections. The sales team can't be playing Doom, right, and wiping it out. So the service departments are having to get their own internet connections with their own dedicated essentially a VPN connection back to Germany. And it's just taking a long time. And then they've got a shortage of parts because if they have the ODB thing connected to that vehicle for 12 hours, they can't put anything else in that service bay. And there are 8,000 of these damn things, just in the West. I think it's California, Oregon, and Washington.
Right.
There's 8,000 vehicles.
By comparison, in 2.5 years, Polestar's at 6,600. Like
no,
nationwide.
No, that's nationwide. But this is just the three West.
The sales success that is the ID4 has been quite impressive.
Yeah, even though they weren't trying to sell it, it did pretty well.
Yeah.
So, they can only do X number a week. I don't know when mine's going to get done. I would hope that mine would be one of the first one, not because I'm special and important, but because I've owned it since it pretty much came out. It was one of the first ones off the lot. So, we will see what's happening. But it just, they're being very cautious, but they keep, you know what? If you're going to be cautious, keep your goddamn mouth shut. There's nothing worse than failing to meet expectations, especially if you're the one setting the expectations. I really did think that we would, I knew it wasn't going to happen by Thanksgiving. I knew about that beginning of November because I was informed it wouldn't happen. But hope was out there that it would still happen before Christmas. Well, it ain't happening before Christmas.
They had me fooled since I bought it, because I was going to take delivery in 2020 of a Model Y. Then there's an issue that happened with Tesla. They gave the car to someone else because I was out of town, yada, yada, whatever. And then the next week, the ID4 was released. I placed an order for it on the promise of these updates and stuff like that. And I know that's, it's a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling when your car gets better once every couple of months for no apparent reason, little things here and there. And, when they kept saying every 3 or 4 months they do an update, I knew that was optimistic, but you'd think at least every 6 months there would have been something. And it was quite a big letdown for sure.
So before, there was so much more we were going to talk about today, but we're aware you can only listen to this for so long. Let's leave you with a couple of things. We are going to be recording another one over the Christmas break. We've already talked about that, and we will do. I can't give you an exact date because I committed to going and doing something stupid. So if you're in Austin on Monday, I'll be there. End of year trip that was not planned but now has to happen.
And if you fell asleep, we hope that you have autoplay on that'll play the next 35 episodes.
And in the next episode, we're going to talk about GM in more detail and their strategy and how we feel about that with the Cadillac and the Celeste and all those elements, because we've talked about it between ourselves, usually when we're driving, but we need to do it in the podcast. We were going to talk more about Canoe because I find them interesting. It's an interesting video. There's so much interest in that one. And so much more. So hopefully that will give you a reason. We're going to talk about the Ford dealership program and what they've been doing, and so maybe we don't get the phone calls that we've been getting in the future. Yada yada yada, and all those things. So on that bombshell, let me just say that if you are in the Bay Area, I would encourage you to go to my personal Instagram or the one for my comedy if you wish to see something that's mildly amusing, which is British John Comedy. That's Jon. We couldn't afford the H. It's just British John Comedy. It is not British John Comedy without an H. We couldn't afford the H. That's just too long for that's a hashtag, not an at. British John Comedy. I've been doing a lot of roast battles recently, and I will be at the next the next roast battle, and I'll be doing a long set there at Punchline Sacramento on the 1st of February, and I'll probably be hosting at the San Jose Improv on the 2nd of February. I am doing some other stuff in January, just it's not been nailed down. And that you will see Joe and I at a number of car events next year. And we're probably going to talk about that as soon as we finish this call, because we've been trying to do that and we haven't managed to work that all out. Anything else from you, Joe?
Nope. Make sure to follow me at EV Motoring. Now YouTube started employing the @ symbol. So, yep, it's youtube.com/@ EV Motoring. I just put up last week my pickup of the Polestar and driving it to San Diego. And then driving from San Diego to Louisville we'll go up tomorrow. So it's been a great trip. I'm happy with the car so far. Do miss the ID4 a little bit, but it's part of the business. Can't get too attached to a car.
No, that is very true. On that bombshell, if you happen, thank you so much for watching, for listening, for engaging. Leave your comments. We do read them. We try to reflect your feedback, and we'll see you next year.
Merry Christmas and take care.
Christmas? You're gonna get us canceled. It's Happy Holiday. This is America. This is America.
Happy Festivus.
I'm leaving this in the edit. Goodbye.